صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه رحمة للعالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Maulana and to all participants. Welcome to tonight's session. Topic will be Palestine and the Ummah. And without further delay, I hand over to Maulana, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وبعد. ويقول الله سبحانه وتعالى في شأن حبيب الكريم مخبرا وعامرا قولا كريما إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. ويقول الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد في سورة الإسراء سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير. صدق الله المولان العلي العظيم وصدق رسول النبي الحبيب الأمين الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I recited, of course, the verses from Surah Isra because the relationship between Palestine and the Ummah stems directly from this ayah and the history around this verse of the Quran and the nisbat of our glorious Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, even in the time when it was the first Qibla. So the first importance in the relationship that is permanent until the day of Qiyamah, that at no point can any individual of the Ummah of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam who considers themselves servants of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, lovers and beloveds of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then they cannot but accept, however weak we are and limited in terms of trying to do what is necessary for the freedom of Al-Quds, which is the Arabic name for Jerusalem. So the city of Jerusalem is called Al-Quds, and of course the gold dome is Qubbatu Sakhara, under which there is a large rock from which our Aqsa sallallahu alayhi wasallam ascended. Here the horizontal Isra, Subhanallah the Asra, glory be to him who took his Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam from Makkah Muazzama, the horizontal journey up to Masjid Al-Aqsa, and then from Masjid Al-Aqsa the vertical journey of the Mi'raj. So it is the Isra horizontal and the Mi'raj. Mi'raj also means steps, or the idea of inclining upwards. A little good tasbih to remember, especially for our participants who have been extremely gallant and sincere and faithful and have been very regular. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expand your knowledge, because that is the main reason for these classes, is to learn. Knowledge is an unbounded ocean, and we learn from the cradle to the grave, and Iqra is the order to get knowledge formally, informally, from books, via teachers, and from chest to chest in the spiritual world as well, from your spiritual mentors. But all that interaction, whether it is the formal teacher or whether it is the murshid, it is all a learning process to know Allah better. In fact, that is the final goal, ma'arifatullah. But you can't get ma'arifatullah until you have ma'arifatul nafs. Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbah. He who knows himself will know his creator. So the relationship with Palestine, or the Ard al-Muqaddasah, as the Quran refers it to, the sacred lands, also to consolidate that relationship, there is a hadith, la tashuddu al-rihal illa ila thalath. Masjid hadha wa Masjid al-Haram, or I think the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said Masjid al-Haram wa Masjid hadha wa Masjid al-Aqsa, that it is permissible or is rather put it the other way, la tashaddu. It is not permissible to make deliberate arrangements and pack goods and make all the arrangements to travel. But to these three places you must, you make an attempt. So the visitation of the Haram in Makkah is through Hajj and Umrah. And at all points, the Hajj and Umrah can never be complete without the niyyah of visiting the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Saudis, Wahhabis, local Tabligis, Deobandis, many of them Salafis, the Arab Wahhabis, they all say no, you mustn't make niyat of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You must make niyat of the Masjidun Nabawi because of this particular hadith which says la tashuddu rihal, do not undertake the difficulties of journey except to these three places: Makkah Muazzama, Masjid Al-Aqsa, and Masjid Hada means the Masjid of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they take the literal meaning and say, right, the Nabi said, don't come to visit me, you must come visit my mosque, visit Makkah, visit my mosque, visit Masjid Al-Aqsa. But of course, in the Sunni world, in the Sunni Sufi world, we know Bakhuda Khuda ka yahi hai dar, nahi aur koi mafar maqar, जो यहाँ से हो तो वहाँ के हो, जो यहाँ नहीं तो वहाँ नहीं. Ala Hazrat Azimul Barakat radiallahu anhu says that actually the whole universe, the whole meaning of life, even the establishment of Qiyamah and the day of judgment and Jannah and Jahannam, all this is to test the ummati of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam essentially. So everything is for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is no other door to the mercy of Allah. All the prophets have come and gone, and the last and final seal, and of course, that is the whole essence of our lives, is to get to Allah by following and looking and searching for the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So our interpretation is different. We make niyat even when we're going for Hajj and Masjid Al-Aqsa and to Masjid Al-Nabawi. We're going to the places where the footprint, where the personality, where the perfume of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is left behind. And those who go with that niyat, then they actually get that perfume. But those who go only to see the buildings and do the archaeology, they will get the archaeology as well. But we will get the person and the place and the things that are all sacred if we go for the person and personality of my and your and the universal Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that was just to explain something which you may incidentally hear from other people, and that is just how they believe. So the interaction or the interconnectivity with Masjid Al-Aqsa, the Dome of the Rock, is in the courtyard of the whole. Essentially, you can call it Masjid Al-Aqsa because I'm not aware exactly at which point, but it was in the mosque proper at that area, that the building which was then, of course, put over that place by Sayyidina Umar. Sayyidina Umar, that means in the time of the Sahaba Kiram, the Khulafa, the masjid was built. Whether I'm sure there are remnants of Sayyidina Umar's building in this Masjid Al-Aqsa, but successive sultans and khulafa and kings and others have, just like in Makkah and Medina, each succeeding people who were the custodians or were in control, ordinarily or by permission or by force, like the Saudis basically at the point of a sword took over the Haramain Sharifain. But nevertheless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still uses them to make it convenient for the Hujjaj and the Mu'tamirin and the Zahirin of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we just as that was the first Qibla Ula, that means the direction we used to face. If we were at that time, we would face. But many of you who have gone for Umrah or Hajj know about Masjid Qiblatain, which is not too far out in the environs of Medina. And within the Salah, the Prophet ﷺ had already had this feeling that since the Kaaba is there, and that is the true home of all the Anbiya, established from Adam alayhi salam, rebuilt by Nuh alayhi salam, rebuilt by each did their duty, but and then of course the recent history that Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ismail alayhi salam, then finally put this Kaaba that is there. And of course there were times when there were difficulties when the Kaaba was attacked, where it was destroyed, where it was, but each time it was rebuilt. So there is vestiges of those stones that were by the hand of Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam. And of course, what is still there is the footprints at Maqam Ibrahim. That's why it's called Maqam Ibrahim, the place of Ibrahim, Nabiyina alayhi salatu wasalam. The footprints are there to show that nisbah, that interconnectivity with Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ismail alayhi salam, in the final, if you wish, major rebuilding of the Kaaba, Baytullah, Kaabatullah, alhamdulillah. So that was just to tell you that we cannot be lukewarm. Just as we have the love for Makkah and Medina, we have to have similar love for Baytul Maqdas, the sacred land, or Masjid Al-Aqsa, or Al-Quds is the entire city of Jerusalem, the sacred areas. And that whole area, of course, is sacred to us. Our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went to Mi'raj from there. He made the Imam of all the Anbiya that went before him. And of course, Sayyidina Umar was the one that essentially handed the city back to the Muslims when he entered it, and the keys were given at that time. The Christian patriarch of Jerusalem, it was in their hands. They peacefully gave it, and of course, he made a treaty, and it's up to until 1948 when the shayateen descended upon Jerusalem and Palestine and Masjid Al-Aqsa and Qubbat al-Sakhra from 48, of course, but then in 67 proper, half of Jerusalem was taken in the 6-day war. I'll encourage people to look up the history because it's extremely important. We get snippets here, but a certain amount we must know about the history of that place and how. But Jerusalem is also like what we would call a symbol city, like Baghdad, where multiple civilizations, some of these ancient, I wouldn't consider Pretoria, Joburg, Cape Town, London, New York, what you call symbolic historical cities, because they are recent, they're in the modern times. But these are ancient. Even a place like Istanbul, within 15 minutes, if you come out of your hotel, that is now you in the 21st century. If you come out and you walk to the Hagia Sophia, or what do you call it now? I forget. Which has now become a masjid. It was a church. You go from BC. That means you go from before Isa alayhi salam's birth up to the modern period, which is over 2,000 years and more. The Roman aqueducts, the Roman amphitheaters, Persian, it's just unreal. Why there it has not been desecrated like in Makkah and Medina, where they were. And if you go to the outlying areas, you will get things that are way even before, from Shu'aib alayhi salam's time, from Salih alayhi salam's time. But because of the restrictions of the Saudis, we don't get to see that. So in that sense, Jerusalem, like Baghdad, are symbolic cities where the centuries play the histories through. So it starts out even as a pre-Islamic place, and then the earliest people, the Jews coming after them, the Christians coming, well, actually the Romans and Persians. But then the Romans become Christian, and that's how Christianity spreads in the Levant, or what is today the so-called Middle East. And then, of course, Islam comes and reconnects to the Islam of Adam alayhi salam, the Islam of Nuh alayhi salam, the Islam of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Islam of Yusuf alayhi salam, the Islam of Musa alayhi salam, the Islam of Dawud alayhi salam. So all of the biblical Old Testament, New Testament, Torah, Talmudic, if you also, all those prophets are our prophets. And therefore, it is our historical and spiritual right to restitute those places. And succeeding from Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, right through the Ottoman Empire, Jerusalem had remained in the hands of Muslims until, and Palestine. Gaza, by the way, is the birthplace of Imam Shafi as well, Muhammad ibn Isa Shafi, whom on this chat most of us are Shafi, we follow him. This is the birth. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the barakah of Imam Shafi's barakat, that his qadam and the sanctity of his being born in Gaza, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free Ahlul Gaza, the people of Gaza, and the Palestinian, the Palestinians, and the Mujahideen, and whoever is doing whatever they can from inside and from outside of Palestine, those that are sending material help, those that are sending military help, those that are making dua. The one thing I want to implore on this chat, don't any one of you ever hold back. Continue, 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 continue. There is no two ways that there is a change this time, perceptible change this time that we are starting to experience that did not happen before. Even the Christian people, non-Muslim people, Western people, European people, Southeast Asian people are starting also to agitate, because they are humanists if they are not believers, and if they are believers and they are correct believers, the Judaism and the Christianity, the essence of their proper deen does not allow them to witness and stand by while the genocide and desecration and destruction happens. So there is definitely a change, and don't underestimate your little dua. Go about your life. Don't feel too guilty. Life must carry on. Somebody dies, you have to carry on. You do the janaza, you do the fatihas, you do the isale sawab, but life is to carry on. You can't say, no, I'm not interested in life anymore, to jump in the qabr with the person. It doesn't work like that. Life and death is in Allah's hands. Similarly, why I mentioned the cyclical nature of history, and that places like Jerusalem and Baghdad are symbolic cities that have been there for centuries, and how Allah controls the cycles of history. And sometimes the Muslims are oppressed, and he makes it that other people, he tests others by us, and he tests us by others, and Allah knows the real hikmah. There is a minority even in South Africa, you people may not have picked it up, but they're actually saying, and we must be careful of this, that it's almost that the Palestinians deserve what is coming to them. Already I saw one or two snippets on the social media, but generally people are afraid. But there are, even in our city, people, especially more from the Salafi, Deobandi, Wahhabi, Tablighi groupings, they actually want to hold them culpable and say, yes, well, they're not living Islam properly, and they're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing that. Well, by their standard, we should have had earthquakes in this part of the world, but again, there's this arrogance that South African Muslims are the best Muslims, or etc. Allah knows the condition of the iman that is in the heart and soul of each one. If we see people on the outward, they are behaving, they are doing, we call them good Muslims. We be in their company, we respect them if they're knowledgeable, etc. So just be careful of falling in that trap for looking for a cheap explanation of why this is happening. Then we must say, wasn't Allah there when the Prophet ﷺ was being stoned by the people of Ta'if? Wasn't Allah there when all the Khulafa were shaheed, except I think Sayyidina Abu Bakr? Yeah, the other three were basically assassinated, killed and murdered. Then are we going to have to say the same? Where was Allah when Nuh alayhi salam's son, after he called him to come and join him on the ship and be saved, animals were saved, but his own son rebelled and turned. So just be careful of these assessments, evaluations, and judgments that we pass collectively on a group of people. What about the child that is born and a bomb explodes and the mother and the child is killed? So is it because they were bad? So when every child, even born from a Christian womb or from a atheist womb, kullu waladin yuladu ala fitrat al-Islam, every single child is born on the fitra and the way of Islam. It is then his parents that make him a Jew or a Magian or a fire worshipper, etc., etc. So environments in your homes, you're first based on hand over your children or your spouses to the mosques and to the media and to the lectures online and to madrasas and schools and colleges. The first university is the lap of the mother, and it's never too late. And the father is the imam of the house. So those of you that are fathers and mothers, it's not too late to start, even with your adult children. Start your recitation of Quran daily. Do your particular spiritual regimen, your tasbihs. Make your durood sharif a little at a time. If you open the Quran, read one line, close. Later, that Quran will grab you, inshallah ta'ala. Anyway, to come back. So the Ummah's interconnectivity with Palestine is unquestionable, unquestioned. We have to have our hearts, souls, minds in it. And on the three levels that we can interact, that is our duty with Palestine. If we cannot do something and take our guns and go and stand next to them and defend them, then we must at least talk about it and join the marches, join the du'as, join the speeches, the lectures, inform yourself of things and speak about it and propagate it. Also, there's an etiquette about social media. Don't just forward everything. Ascertain the authenticity and veracity, because that's also there's waging a war and trying to make fools of the Muslims as well. So be extremely guarded in etiquette. If there is things to sign or letters to be sent, whatever capacity you have, talk about it in your families, and conscientize them. Like mashallah, look, Samir had his Palestinian scarf on, etc., and that's excellent. We do it in whichever symbolic way. And then, of course, the last thing, you can't do it physically. You can't go there. Like we know, Gift of the Givers have a hospital running there. The Indonesian government has a hospital running there, etc., etc. And they, however, they can manage to get it, because unfortunately, they are surrounded by Jordan and Israel and Egypt, and none of those countries really allow the full and unfettered access to basics and things. The Palestinians can't even dig for water without permission. So Allah knows best. It is our duty as the Ummah around Palestine to do what we need to do, and that is our bounden duty. Because the last thing is that if you can't do anything, at least in your heart, have that feeling, but don't let the sadness and the feeling, cry, be sad, but don't let it denude you of your of of your courage, because this is also what they are trying to do. They are trying to depress us. They're using social media to break our morale and our courage. And of course, the Quran is emphatic. La taqnatu min rahmatillah. Do not ever despair of the mercy of Allah. He's got his plan. Inshallah, we make dua that in our time, we, this group here, will visit and go and see a free Palestine. That even if we want to live there, that opportunity will come. It can happen. It can happen within months and within a few years too. The change is beginning. Allah knows best. If there was more access to, from an Ummah side point of view, to Palestine, if there was access, I have no doubt that we don't even have to lift one finger to control or hit or kill the Jews, the Zionists, or whoever is against Islam and Muslims, especially in that part of the world, because the Muslims will pour all sorts of intellectual and economic and emotional and psychological power, unbridled. The world's ships, those that of course are afraid to take their armies now, but when it comes to economics, even if the governments don't act, non-governmental organizations, as they're doing now, will multiply by 1,000 and more times their aid, and that economic strength will make them independent, and they will develop, and they will make airports and harbors and factories and agriculture, and it will, that alone will be the natural death knell, sorry, of Israel, because Israel is only based on the American dollar. So that is actually what is the eventual thing, in my opinion, that can, and of course, I mean, there's experts in the world have said that. So the Ummahs must be ready for that. In that regard, sometimes South African Muslims say they give a lot, but I still don't think, for the capacity that we have, I think we give our zakat, yes. I don't think we really give our zakat, otherwise there shouldn't be any poor people. The Germans worked out that if every citizen in Germany gave 2%, there will be no poor German. They hit a miss by 0.5%. They should have asked the Muslims, but unfortunately, they scientifically worked out 2%. We've got the Quran directive and imperative of 2.5%, and we still got people that the list of needy people is just increasing and increasing. It also means our zakat and sadaqah and lillah is not being done in a restitutive way, where instead of lengthening the dependency list, we should be decreasing it. But we'll talk about those responsibilities to our the Ummah, to every other individual of the Ummah. So the collective Ummah for the individual, and the individual's responsibility to the Ummah, and in the same vein, the Ummah's responsibility to Palestine. So that days will come, inshallah ta'ala. So even if there is an opportunity, we know of the Chechen army and the Afghanistan army and the Indonesian, not perhaps the official government, that are ready to arm and go physically and fight. So the world's Jewish citizens can go from all their countries, have double citizenship. Even the South Africans can go, fight and come back, but they will not tolerate, even the Muslim countries won't tolerate their citizens to go. I will even say that I doubt South Africans will allow, South African citizens to go and join the armed forces in Gaza or in Palestine. Timing, Samir?
Maulana, we can round off.
Barakallah. So the responsibility of the Ummah to Palestine is clear. We have to do something about it. We have to know about it. We have to feel about it. We have to make dua about it. So this activism on those three levels must not be stopped permanently until we are alive. Even although the activism globally may not sustain itself, it may or may not. Today, I believe South African Parliament did vote overwhelmingly to cut off diplomatic ties. Now it depends. That was Parliament. So Parliament informs government. Now the minister, the foreign minister, and the president, and the executive of the government must decide to implement it. I hope that they can get away from the yoke of the Jewish weight. Also, another thing that the Ummah needs to do for Palestine is definitely not to support Jewish products, Jewish companies to whatever extent you can. I will feel very uncomfortable to go into Woolworths now, for example, and this scam is also in that. There's a list, everybody knows about it. I was surprised to know that even Checkers was on it. I didn't know, but clearly Pick and Pay, Checkers was on the list, McDonald's and all that too. So please, Coke, Pepsi, and their products from those companies. I know Muslims are 90% addicted. So, well, you want to know your responsibility. We want to know our responsibility of the Ummah to Palestine. Then don't just talk. act personally, then in your family, then in your broader community. Shukran. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I supposed to have started with a question. Banaha Umar wa harraraha Salah ad-Din famallaha al-an. And we were supposed to have ended with that, but nevertheless, I'll tell you what it means. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu built the mosque of Aqsa, which means the furthest mosque, as the Quran describes it. Then it went into the hands of the Jews and Christians, and then it was Salahuddin Ayyubi, I think in one something like many, I can't remember which years, but from that time up to 1948 and then 1967, Salahuddin Ayyubi is freeing, and it remained in the hand of Muslims until this time. So the question is, Sayyidina Umar built it, Salahuddin freed Quds and Al-Jerusalem and Palestine. فَمَلَّهَا الْآنِ, who is now going to take up the responsibility? And we all have to say, we will going to take up the responsibility on the three levels that we discussed. Yes, we cannot be the Salahuddin, possibly, who knows? Maybe they can still be from among us somebody that stands and becomes the modern Salahuddin, but if not, then we still got the other two levels where we have no excuse whatsoever to do our duty as part of the Ummah towards Palestine. Shukran. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah again to Maulana, to all the participants. Inshallah, we'll meet again next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.